In our small town, there's a haunted house made out of an old hospital that many residents, including the owners, believe is haunted. When the hospital was made over 100 years ago, the place was originally owned by a dentist. He kept it for a while before selling it off to a doctor, turning it into a full hospital. A few years later, the doctor fell down the elevator shaft and died. Ever since then, weird paranormal things have happened there. Residents have reported ghosts, objects moving and sometimes slamming on their own, poltergeists screwing up people's cameras, and even making those old bulby TVs pop before the days of flat screens. So many different incidents have been reported that you'd have to do research on multiple websites or history books just to know it all. It probably doesn't help that the place was also a mental hospital for a short time. But now, the new owners have completed all of the preparations needed to turn this place into a haunted house. They repainted the outside, hired a construction crew to make sure everything was safe and up to code. They also hired employees. The employees consisted of actors, makeup artists, prop designers, tech guys, and even security guards. That's where I come in. I'm Shane Williams, one of the 5 security guards that work here whenever the place is open. Our job is to make sure no one tries to get into the place for free, cut in line, or harass any of the other employees. It's a simple job and the pay is good as well. You'd think that growing up in this town would prevent me from ever stepping anywhere near the old hospital. But I didn't really believe all the stories told about the place. I thought it was just to keep kids away from it. Well, all the different owners tried figuring out what they wanted to do with the building. On opening night, we all knew something was wrong when we couldn't find Kevin, who played the original doctor. It was the middle of the night and customers reported that the room he was supposed to be in was empty. Me being the guard closest to his room, I was called in via walkie-talkie almost immediately.
Oi, Shane.
The audio coming from the small machine. It was Sean, someone who moved here from Ireland a few years ago, along with the new owners. He was one of the other guards, and probably the one guy I was closest to here. During the party for opening night, me and Sean were having a discussion about how Sean was the Irish version of Shane. Plus, I figured it'd be a good idea to get on the good side of my boss's son. I grabbed the walkie-talkie and answered. Yeah, Sean. Everything good on your end?
Yeah, but I heard from some customers that Kevin isn't in his room. Can you go over and see if you can find him?
He asked. I told him I would. Sean was the guard in charge of the exit area. He had to make sure no one snuck back in or stole something. It didn't take me long to get to Kevin's room. The lights were fully on and there was caution tape to prevent customers from coming through here. Well, we figured things out. His room was set up to look like a mad doctor's office. A hospital bed covered in fake blood-covered surgery utensils on the desk. The doctor's room was also on the top floor, a detail the setup designers put in because of the way he died. So if Kevin wasn't up here, it had to be for a good reason. Hey, Kevin! I called out, trying to find him. Maybe he took a quick coffee break and forgot to tell us. I looked over, seeing the elevator door almost all the way open. The caution tape ripped open and dangling into the shaft. That's not right. The owner said that the doors were welded shut. The construction workers were supposed to make the shaft inaccessible. My curiosity got to the better of me, and I walked closer to it, seeing it was wider than I thought. I looked down into it. I saw Kevin. His body lay limp on the bottom floor of the elevator shaft, a pool of blood around his body, and his head in a position that made it look like his neck was snapped. Holy shit! I yelled as I jumped back, flinching from what I saw. I grabbed the walkie-talkie, calling Sean. Sean, send an ambulance. Call the cops. Kevin fell down the elevator shaft. I yelled into the small, fake phone, panting heavily and shaking. Nothing at this place normally scared me, since I knew it was all fake. But seeing Kevin's lifeless body down there, it was so undeniably real. There's no way that was done with stage makeup and paint. Soon enough, the haunted house was evacuated for the authorities. The medics took Kevin's body and put it in a body bag once he was confirmed to be dead. A police officer asked me a few questions. When he was done, he sighed and closed his notebook. This is going to be a hard case. Can't tell if it was suicide or a murder. The officer mumbled to himself. I heard what he said and gave him a puzzled look. I honestly thought it was a murder, that someone who didn't like Kevin found out he worked here, pried the door open, and pushed him to make it look like suicide. Why would Kevin commit suicide? I began asking the officer. If he wanted to kill himself, wouldn't it make sense to do it at home than to do it here? The officer sighed and shrugged. He could have been a method actor. Maybe he wanted to fall a little just to see what the doctor went through, but didn't realize he was too high before it was too late, he explained, causing me to shake my head. I didn't say anything else, though. I felt like nothing I would say would help the officer at all, since I only just met Kevin recently. Once the authorities left, I sat in the break room area with Sean, sipping on coffee and snacking on some cookies. I stared hard at the table, still not believing what I saw. Someone that I met, who seemed so gung-ho and excited about being a part of the whole thing, and finally putting his acting skills to use where people will enjoy it, was dead. Sean patted me on the back. Even as he spoke soft, comforting words, I couldn't take my eyes off the downward direction, whether it be at the table, cup, or snacks. I didn't look in his direction. It was like knowing that I was the first one to see Kevin's dead body, formed a weight that wouldn't let me look up. Sean snapped his fingers in my face. Oi, Irish Shane to American Shane, you still here? He asked me before I even realized that none of his words were even processing through my brain. I cleared my throat and looked up at him. There was something oddly comforting about the Irishman's emerald eyes. Oh, yeah, sorry. What were you saying? I asked, wondering what it was that made him want to bring me back to reality. He sighed, putting a hand on my shoulder. Look, I heard your conversation with the cop lad earlier. Would it make you feel better if we look through the security footage? The cops didn't even bother, but we have full access, and maybe seeing what happened might calm your nerves a bit, he explained, causing me to give him a confused look. Wait, the cops didn't look at the security tapes? Isn't that part of investigating the crime scene? I looked back at my coffee before sipping it, finishing the last of it. Before I knew it, he had grabbed my hand and started dragging me to the room where all the security cameras can be watched from. This was Jesse's spot. His job as a guard was to make sure that no one messed with the cameras, but he wasn't here tonight due to a chest cold. Jesus, Sean, give a man a warning next time, I shouted. Sean let go, chuckling to himself as he started looking for tonight's tape. As the cool air touched the skin of my hand, I realized just how warm his hands were. Part of me wanted to hold his hand again, but I shook it off. Gotta keep up with me, man. Anyways, have a seat. I got the tape ready to watch, he explained as I sat down. He pressed play, and we both watched the footage. Things looked normal until Kelly, the person playing Kevin's assistant, left to take a bathroom break. That's when things got weird. A few minutes after Kelly left, Kevin started cringing. He then screamed, begging for some entity to get out of his head. He banged his head on the table before grabbing a chair and throwing it towards the camera, knocking it out and making the visual of the footage blank. The last thing I heard from the tape was a descending scream and a loud thunk. I leaned back against the chair, way more confused than before. What the hell was that? Did Kevin just lose it suddenly and then jump down the elevator shaft? How did he get the shaft open? No one in our crew is strong enough to open it. Fucking ghosts, mumbled Sean, making me jump a bit and look over at him. I didn't say anything, waiting for him to elaborate. I raised a brow, hoping it would give him a clue. It's gotta be ghosts or some shit like that. This building is haunted, isn't it? Maybe the doctor's spirit or ghost got pissed that we were making fun of his death and wanted revenge, he explained. I sighed and shook my head. I know this place is haunted, but Kevin didn't do anything to deserve being possessed or whatever it is, I said as I stood up and checked the time on my phone. It was 3 a.m. I needed to head home. I walked with Sean out into the parking lot of the place. He patted my back once again when we got to our cars. Try not to worry about things too much, Shane. If we end up being open tomorrow night, you're gonna need some rest. I'll see you then, okay? I looked up at him, nodding and giving him a small smile. Yeah, I'll see you later, Sean. I got in my car, started the engine, waved Sean goodbye, and drove home. I couldn't sleep that night. All I could see whenever I closed my eyes was Kevin's dead body. So I got up, walked to my bookshelf, and grabbed one of the mini, empty journals my grandma got me for a graduation present. I sat at the desk, picked up a pencil, and began writing everything that happened that night. I decided that from now on, I was going to write about what happened every night. God only knows what the hell is going to happen at the damn hospital. Once I either lose my job or the place gets shut down, that's when I'll stop writing. Then I'll share it online, just in case anyone wants to know what actually happened there. The owners called everyone the next day, saying that we would still be open tonight, and a memorial would be held later in the week. But why didn't we get shut down? I was slightly disappointed that I wasn't going to get a full day to recuperate from the previous night's events. I started listening to a podcast, set an alarm, and decided to take a nap before tonight's shift. My before work nap was peaceful, almost equivalent to a full night's sleep. That wasn't until towards the end when I had a nightmare about Kevin. His grueling body, his zombie crawling towards me, with no explanation why. The sight alone made me wake up with a violent jerk. I ended up cracking my back in the process, which released some tension and helped me calm down. I checked my phone, seeing that I had some time before I had to get ready to leave. I rubbed my eyes before getting up, grabbing the journal, and opening up a notepad app on my phone. I carefully translated my journal entry from last night onto the app. Then I added or edited a few things for grammar and storytelling purposes. I found a website where people post about things in the horror aspect. I created an account and finally posted my first night of work events to the community. I honestly felt like it would just get hidden among some of the stories on there. I read a few posts before getting up and getting ready for work. When I got to work, we had a quick staff meeting in the break room, discussing the situation at hand. Apparently, an article was posted on our town's website for the newspaper about Kevin's accident. Marley, Sean's dad, and one of my bosses told us his thoughts on it. Now, this whole thing could either have a positive or negative effect on the business, so we may gain popularity. If we get people that are ghost hunters with cameras and everything, go ahead and let them in. We could get more people that way. Maybe even people outside of the state, he explained before dismissing everyone. I wasn't sure how to feel about Kevin's death having a positive effect on things. The man just died last night. Shouldn't we all at least give him a little respect? I went to leave the room before Marley put his hand on my shoulder. I turned to face him. Yes, sir? I asked softly, wondering what he wanted. He smiled at me. I'm counting on you to let the right kind of people in this place, Shane. People with cameras or even full camera crews are allowed. But if you get a bad feeling about a specific group, do not let them in. We don't need people spreading negative rumors about our haunted house. He told me. I nodded, smiling. Suddenly I felt someone wrap an arm around me loosely. I turned my head to see Sean, smiling at both me and Marley. Hey, don't worry. Shane's a real topper. We hired him as front gate guard for a reason, right? Sean said. I was confused, until I had to remind myself that Sean and his parents use Irish slang a lot. I think if I remember correctly, topper is a term for a good, hard-working person, or something like that. Marley nodded before leaving the room. I checked my phone. We had a half an hour before showtime. Kevin's room was locked up, so we don't have to worry about anyone else going in there. I left the room, making my way to the front where my post was. Sean was right behind me. I guess he wanted to walk with me and then go around the building to get to his post. I didn't see Mark at the meeting, Sean said to himself. Mark was another one of the security guards. His post was in the fairy tale section. Each section had a theme, based on different stories and other things. His job was to make sure that the actors didn't walk into anything, since the lighting and their costumes limit their vision. I shrugged. He could either be in his post already or running late. I suggested to him as we continued to walk. Not that big of a deal, right? I asked. Well, it wouldn't be, if it wasn't for the fact that things went to shit when Kevin wasn't where he was supposed to be. He explained. I sighed, nodding in agreement. Suddenly, something jumped out of one of the rooms in the hallway screaming at us. I jumped and stepped back a bit. God, what the fuck? I shouted out what looked to be a haunted deer head. Whoever was controlling it started laughing, taking off the mask and pointing at me. The person turned out to be Naomi. She's the actress for the human and animal taxidermy room. You look like you were gonna fucking piss yourself, she teased before continuing her laughter. It was then that I realized Sean was laughing too. No one here knows this, but I've never actually been in a haunted house, trail, or corn maze before. So because of my lack in experience for this specific Halloween activity, I would always be more jumpy than usual in the building. Even inside of Halloween stores, I always have an overwhelming feeling of terror. The constant fear of being attacked or jumped at. It's worse now after seeing Kevin's dead body, which is probably why I find the break room to be so calming. Sean walked up to Naomi. Okay. I think one cares enough for Shane tonight. After all, he was the one that found Kevin last night, he explained to her. She looked up at him, then looked back at me. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, I didn't know, she said, walking up to me. I rubbed the back of my neck. It's okay, Naomi, I said softly. Sean didn't have to do that. I wasn't going to get all butthurt over a friendly scare, but I still appreciated it. Don't worry about it. She went back to her room, and before long, me and Sean were both where we needed to be, preparing for us to open again tonight. The first group of customers was a group of teenagers. All of them were crudely dressed up as different versions of the Doctor. More specifically, Kevin's version. His picture was in our ad posters for the establishment that we put around town. The news probably used it when they told Kevin's story. I was a bit upset and tempted to turn them away, but I couldn't deny them over something like this. It'd be different if they were dressed up as someone more offensive. They showed me their passes, and I let them in. I can't believe they have security guards for this place, one of the kids exclaimed as they headed inside. Guess they hired them after what happened to that Kevin guy. I sighed, their comment slightly annoying me. But I ignored it. For the majority of the night, we had our normal crowd, kids, teens, and young adults dressed in casual clothing, some excited, some terrified. But around midnight, a group of young adults wearing hoodies with a glow-in-the-dark logo of a video camera with a bloody knife stabbed through it. Underneath said, Murder Modders. I assumed that they were either a ghost hunting TV show or a YouTube channel. The name needed some work, that's for sure. I wasn't going to tell them that, of course. I was still playing my nice employee card. Hey there, said one of the guys with a small friendly wave and smile. I watched him look towards my name tag. Shane, huh? Listen, my dude, we paid for our passes. You don't have a problem with us filming our experience in there for our channel, right? He asked me. I shrugged and nodded. I don't see why not. Show me your passes and I'll let you in. I responded as I readied myself to open the gate. They all showed me their passes and one of the guys with a camera pointed it towards me. Mr. Security Dude Shane, have you experienced anything supernatural here, other than the Kevin incident? He asked me with a voice that made him sound like the stereotypical California surfer man. I shook my head. Not really, but there are multiple people in costumes, multiple rooms with a variety of different props and decorations. So maybe some stuff has happened, and no one's noticed because everyone has assumed it's part of the show. I explained with a soft smirk. I didn't want to give these guys a reason to take their passes back and ask for a refund. The camera guy gave me a thumbs up before going inside with the rest of his murder modder buddies. About half an hour later, I got a call from my pager. Just a shorter way of saying walkie-talkie.
Hey Shane.
Mark asked as he called in through it. I picked it up ready to answer. Yeah, what's up, Mark?
Brock isn't in here. He left for a smoke break and hasn't come back since. Can you look for him while I cover your post?
I sighed, hoping like hell this wasn't going to be a repeat of last night's events. But I'll only be looking for him on the first floor or basement area, so I shouldn't be finding Brock on the bottom of the shaft. After checking the outdoor designated smoke areas, the break room, and the Red Riding Hood room, I started heading downstairs and into the basement. Brock? I called out as I turned the lights on and walked around the room, Come on, buddy. I gotta get back to work, and so do you. We don't get paid to play hide and seek. I walked to the center point of the room, looking around. Suddenly, I heard a loud crash. A sound of metal hitting against another object. Then the lights went out. Panic began surging through my body as I reached for my flashlight. When I found it and flicked it on, I saw Brock in front of me. He was wearing his werewolf costume. I sighed, relieved. Oh, thank God. It's just you fucking with me, I said before he pushed me down. As I fell, I let go of the flashlight. Both me and the object hit the ground. The light at a bad angle to where I could barely see anything. Brock stomped towards me, holding something I've never seen before. It looked like a metal toothbrush, but with a circle at the end, slowly spinning with blood-covered pins on it. Before I could even process what was happening, the wolfman kneeled next to me, rolling the metal object against my hand. I screamed in agony, feeling the pin stab into and out of my skin within a matter of seconds. I couldn't believe how much pain the small tool could cause. Marshals, he shouted in a gravelly, muffled voice before pulling out another metal tool out of his pocket, rolling both of them on my hands at the same time. I yelled and kicked him in the knee, causing him to fall back. I shakily grabbed my pager, pushing the call button. I wasn't trying to find someone specific, but I needed help. I knew that if Brock kept using those damn things on me, I wasn't going to be able to get out of the basement. Everyone, this is Shane. I'm in the basement and need help. Brock's lost it and he's attacking me. I was able to get through before Brock slapped it out of my hand and punched me so hard, I almost blacked out as I fell back onto a hospital gurney. When I tried to get up, I realized that the mad wolfman had me strapped in. Marshals. Kill Meg. Revenge. He yelled before crawling on top of me and aiming the tool towards my eyes. I slammed them shut. Brock, don't do this. Come on, man, it's me, Shane. I begged as I waited for me to become blind or even worse. Suddenly, I felt Brock's weight lift off from me. I shot my eyes open and saw that Sean had knocked Brock onto the ground. I breathed heavily. I wanted to thank Sean, but I couldn't get the words out. He ran up to me and checked on me. Shit, Shane, you're bleeding. I should have punched fucko in the damn gob, he said as I watched him look at my hand wounds. It was only then that I realized just how badly I was bleeding. The bottom half of my hands, as well as my fingers, were covered in it. I could feel the loss of blood affecting me, as my eyes lolled to the floor, like how they normally do when I'm drunk. Sean seemed to notice. Shane, look at me. Stay with me, mate, he begged. I slowly looked at him and into his eyes. I giggled a bit. You have really pretty eyes, I mumbled. The lights must have gone back on because, despite my somewhat blurred vision, I could see better. Sean let out a nervous chuckle, blushing softly. Ah, jackass. You're just saying that because of the blood loss, he said before looking behind him. Brock was standing now, except this time, he was standing and his mask was off. It didn't even look like Brock. Instead of the red hair and chin strip for facial hair, he now had black hair and scruffy stubble. He also had a rusty scalpel in his hand. Marshals be damned. Gregory dead. Meg avenged, he shouted before stabbing himself in the heart with a scalpel. He collapsed onto the floor. Jesus Christ. Fucking hell, Sean mumbled. I felt myself fall off the gurney before blacking out. I woke up hours later in a brightly lit hospital bed. My brain felt fuzzy, and I felt a small sting on both my hands as well as my face. Eventually, Sean came in and explained what happened. I was in need of medical attention. Apparently, the tool that Brock used ended up giving me big cuts on both of my hands, and his punch had also bruised my cheek. Sean had brought me here, knowing I wasn't okay. As for Brock, the person in the wolf costume wasn't him. His body was disguised as a prop in the zombie room, and the person that attacked me was Zach Domino. Apparently, Zach and Brock's family had a history, and at one point during the mental hospital era of the building, Brock's great-grandfather was a doctor that liked to torture his patients with medical tools. His name was Gregory Marshall. Zach's great-grandfather, named Felix Domino, was in a long-term relationship with the so-called love of his life, Megan Jersey. Megan became one of Gregory's patients for a while and eventually died because of him. Zach had walked into the haunted house at one point tonight, and Sean thinks that maybe because both of them were in the building, Felix's ghost or spirit or whatever possessed Zach and killed Brock as an act of revenge and continued his rampage until he felt himself losing control of Zach's body. It was a good theory and would make the most sense according to the police. Zach and Brock had never met prior to this. I just shrugged, still a bit loopy from the blood loss. Fucking ghosts, I said, smiling softly as I referenced what Sean said last night. He rolled his eyes before he handed me the journal. This fell out of your bag when Zach attacks you. I didn't read it, I promise, but you can write about how pretty my eyes are while I get the paperwork figured out to get you out of here. He teased with a wink before heading out of the room. I blushed. Did I really say that? Damn blood loss. I picked up the journal and began writing about tonight. I figured if I wrote now, it would make it easier for me to type up and post later. I checked my phone, seeing that once again, the police didn't shut down the place. It didn't make sense to me. A murder and possessed suicide happened, and we aren't even closing for a day. I was left to assume that it may be because of the history of the building. The next morning was when the doctors at the hospital let me leave. Sean drove me back to the haunted house so I could drive my car back home. It took so long to get the paperwork done and process my health insurance that, before I was even close to leaving, I managed to update what I guess is called a blog. Kept me from getting bored out of my mind. When we got into the parking lot, Sean looked at me. Hey Shane, you gonna be okay, man? He asked me as he put a hand on my shoulder. I looked back at him. There was something about us being so close together in the car that made me nervous. And not a bad nervous either. It's hard to describe. I nodded and smiled softly. Yeah, I'll be fine, Sean. My stitches are going to be a bitch to deal with, but I should be able to make it to work tonight, I said softly. He chuckled and shook his head. That's good. I just hope no more weird shit happens tonight. Like we work for a haunted house, mate. All the crazy spooky shit should be fake. He joked. I tried not to laugh as he leaned back in his seat. He took his hat off and played with his hair a bit. This was the first time I saw him without his hat. It made me realize just how attractive he was. The young Irishman had dark brown hair that in certain lighting could easily look like black hair. It was short, the sides and back shaved slightly, and a small amount of bangs, all parted to the right side of his face. His facial hair looked to be a bit darker and was a small beard, longer than my facial hair for sure, which was basically stubble. I ignored the thought, shrugged, and looked towards the building. Yeah, I guess. I'm shocked your parents haven't been forced to shut down or even close the place for a day. It's part of the lease contract deal with Mom and Dad got the place, and all the shit they needed to open it up. The only way they'll do an unscheduled closing is if we become a possible harm to the community. And since that Zach guy killed Brock and then killed himself, we didn't do any harm to the public, he explained to me. I guess that makes some sense. Could also be the building's history. Maybe because of all the shit that's happened over the last 100 years or whatever. The authorities think that the history itself is a warning to go in at your own risk. I suggested an explanation. Sean nodded. I stretched and got out of the car. I'm gonna head home. Try to get some rest before tonight's shift. I didn't really want to head home just yet, but it was the responsible thing to do. Good idea, mate. Look, you have my number, so if you need anything, just shoot me a text or a call, okay? He said after I shut the door. I nodded, waved by, and got in my car to go home. Driving with stitches, I learned was annoying as all hell. The itching and burning I felt was aggravating. I have sensitive skin, which is probably why, whenever I had to use my hands to grip something for a certain period of time, it felt like I had a row of mosquito bites on them. When I arrived for my shift later that night, I learned that we weren't going to be having a meeting about the whole thing that happened last night. So I went into the break room and made myself a cup of coffee. Back when all of us were first hired, Adriana, Sean's mother, got a list of everyone's favorite snacks, drinks, and coffee flavors. She somehow managed to implement that list into the break room. I started making my usual go-to coffee. A caramel vanilla cream flavored K-cup, used with the biggest cup selection on the Keurig. Once the machine finished filling the mug with its contents, I would add 2 or maybe 3, even 4 scoops of sugar, and 2 plastic spoonfuls of vanilla caramel creamer. After stirring it all and mixing it, I sat down at the table. It wasn't until after I took the first sip that I noticed something. Somehow, the coffee was black. And not the usual black either. I meant the actual color of black. What was really strange and confusing about it was that it tasted like my usual coffee, and even smelled like it. Sean came into the room whistling and noticed me staring at the mug. He cringed, made a disgusted noise, and then made his way to the tray of shortbread cookies, or biscuits, as he called all kinds of cookies. Ugh, don't try to get me to kiss you after drinking that tar-looking shit. He mumbled before taking a bite out of a small cookie. I assumed he was joking, but that still didn't stop the flush of hot red that covered my cheeks. I never thought about kissing him before. Actually, I never really thought about kissing anyone before. But now I was thinking about it. I tried to act cool, looking away. Guess the machine needs to be cleaned, I said softly before sipping away at my coffee. I figured sipping would keep my mouth shut and prevent any chance of embarrassing myself. Sean sat near me, still snacking on cookies. He waited until he finished before speaking again. Whatever, man. I guess if you can drink it without gagging, the color ain't changing the taste, he said as he looked at me. How are your hands doing? I finished my sip and shrugged. It's alright. Stitches itch like hell sometimes, but could be worse, I guess. I answered. He nodded before reaching over and grabbing one of my hands. I stared at him blankly as he observed my hand. Doesn't look infected. It's not that. My skin is just really sensitive. Hell, I can't even use my hand to smooth out clean cat litter without the skin getting red, irritated, and slightly itchy, I explained. My voice slightly nervous. Why was I making such a big deal out of this? He was just checking my hand. He wasn't trying to flirt or anything. Was he? Sean let go of my hand and raised a brow. You're allergic to cat litter? He asked me curiously. I sighed and shook my head. No, that's not it. Like I said, sensitive skin. He smirked at me, causing me to tilt my head. Why was he looking at me like that? So, you're a sensitive lad, eh? Gave him a look, sighed, and shook my head. You know, Sean, you're a smartass sometimes, I told him, making him laugh. What do you expect? I'm Irish. It's in my blood to be a smartass. Is it also in your blood to be a jackass? I teased with a soft snicker. He rolled his eyes. Says the jackass that said I had pretty eyes last night. I blushed deeply and looked away, using the bill of my hat to help hide my face. Shut up, dude, I mumbled to myself. He laughed, getting up and patting me on the back. I'm just fucking with you, Shane. Calm down. Once I felt the blush fade, I looked up at him and nodded. An alarm on my phone went off, signaling it was time for us to head to our posts and start another night at work. The murder modders came back tonight. They claimed they wanted to be the first ones to go through the whole place. Since last night, there were too many people for them to get any decent footage in the empty rooms. I honestly didn't know there were any empty rooms. I thought every room in the building had some sort of a theme and actors or props in them. Guess the set designers and construction crew didn't want to completely rebuild a room. We had a normal affair of customers afterwards, or I guess technically you could call them tourists. At one point, I led a small group of teens that looked like they were on a double date of sorts. I've never really been on a double date, or even a normal date myself, but I've seen enough movies, read enough books, and played enough video games to know what one looked like. I guess it was weird that people in relationships would want to spend time together inside a haunted house and getting spooked. Wouldn't it be better to just save their money and hang out at home? I don't know. At some point after they walked in, I heard what sounded like an animal whining. It sounded like it was coming from the employee smoking station. It was a fence decorated as a zombie zone. I looked ahead, saw that no one was coming up, and decided to see what was happening. When I got in, I saw a dog or maybe even a wolf. He had black fur with small hints of a dark gray. He appeared to be stuck in a hole in the fence, needing help. He looked up at me as I approached him. "Hey there. Look, I'm gonna help you, okay?" I said calmly as I started to carefully move the wiring of the fence. Once he was out, he jumped on me, making me fall to the ground. I was worried he was going to attack me, but he started licking my face. I assumed he was thanking me. I couldn't help but laugh. "You're welcome." He got off me, and I stood up. He didn't have a collar or any sign of an owner. I gave him a quick head pat before heading back to my post. When I got there, I saw that he was following me. "Do you want to go home with me?" I asked him curiously. I've wanted a dog of my own, but with all the things happening at work, I haven't had time to look into it. He barked happily, which I took for a yes. I smiled at him. I walked over to my car, pulling out a gray and black bandana with paw prints. It was something I had from the dog I had back when I lived with my parents. I tied it around the black dog's neck. He looked happy, wagging his tail rapidly. "How about I call you Shadow?" I asked him. He barked and nuzzled my hand. I went back to my post and Shadow stayed with me as I worked. He didn't attack any tourists and behaved well. I would give him pets and messed around with him whenever things went down. Kept me company and it felt nice. Around 2 in the morning, the tourist had a panicked look on her face as she pointed upward. "There's someone on the roof," she shouted, causing me to look up. I couldn't tell who it was, but I knew it wasn't normal. No one ever goes on the roof except for the set designers when setting up decorations. I looked over at Shadow. "Shadow, do you think you can guard the entrance while I go check things out?" I asked him desperately. He barked, getting out of his sitting spot and sniffing around the tourists. I assumed he was checking for passes or something. That was close enough to a yes for me. I ran inside, heading for the stairs. I grabbed my pager, knowing I had to notify the other guards. "Guard dispatch, this is Shane. A tourist saw a person on the roof, and I'm going to check to see what's going on. There's a dog at my post. Don't harm him. He's mine." I explained as I ran up the stairs as fast as I could. When I finally made it to the roof, I stood still long enough to catch my breath. I looked over at the other person. He was standing on the edge and looked like he was about to jump. "Hey," I called out as soon as I stepped closer. He turned towards me. It was Carlos. He was the guard in charge of the Angel and Devil room. For some reason, his eyes were glowing white, and his security uniform looked like it was torn and splattered with paint. "You ignorant fool," he shouted at me in a voice that was definitely not his. It was so much deeper. "This man is a sinner. He must fall to his death and repent, or suffer in hell." From what I've heard, Carlos was in prison before he got out and got the job here. He was convicted of a false accusation, so I didn't understand what was so bad about that it made him want to jump. "Carlos, what the hell are you talking about? You weren't guilty, so it's okay. Look, come downstairs with me and we can talk about it all," I said calmly. He growled loudly, not liking my answer. "That's what he wants you all to think. He's a manipulative killer. He almost murdered your angel, but my spirit has stopped him." He shook violently and grabbed at his head. He cringed and whined. "Shane, I'm sorry for what I did. Please just get this man out of my head. I don't want to die," he said in his normal voice. I got closer to him, getting ready to pull him to safety. "Silence, maggot. Your damnation is inevitable," the deep, inhuman voice shouted. He turned around and jumped. But I moved fast enough to catch him by his arm. I was on the edge and using my feet to keep me from falling. "Come on, Carlos. Whatever you did, we'll forgive you. You already did your time. You don't have to do this." I tried desperately to reason with him. "This man is a monster. A creature that drinks a crimson water that is the essence of life. You will see the truth before he dies." Before I could say anything else, he pulled up and bit my arm. I screamed as I felt his teeth pierce through my skin, feeling as if my blood was being sucked somehow. I instinctively let go and cringed. Carlos was gone. My reaction caused me to lose my footing and almost fell completely, but I caught the ledge last second. I was crying out for help without even realizing it. I was desperately using my legs and feet to try and pull myself up, but they kept slipping. I could hear Shadow barking like crazy, though it wasn't as loud because of the distance. "Shane?" I heard somebody shout. I was panicking too much to even process who it was. I didn't care. I just hoped it was someone who would help me. Whoever grabbed my hands and pulled me up. We both fell back onto the roof. I looked up and saw that it was Sean who saved me. I hugged him tightly, not caring what he thought anymore. I can't believe that it took a near-death experience to make me realize that I had a crush, feelings, for the Irishman. I realized I was shaking violently as I felt his arms wrap around me. "Shh, it's okay, Shane. I got you. You're safe now," he whispered softly. His warm embrace and soothing voice helped me calm it down a bit. I felt the need to tell him how I felt about him, even if it was bad timing. Though when I opened my mouth, I couldn't find the words. "Sean, I..." He then used one of his hands to take my hat off and pet my hair. "I know, Shane. I know." I looked up at him. That wasn't enough for me. I needed actual confirmation that he knew what I meant. God only knows I'd be able to tell him when the adrenaline rush leaves my body. "Prove it," I mumbled. Part of me hoping he didn't hear me. That's when he did something I'd never thought he'd do. He took his hand, putting it on my cheek and making me look at him. And then, he gave me a small kiss on the lips. I tried to kiss back, failing and kissing his neck by accident. I blushed deeply and hid my face. "Sorry," I mumbled, embarrassed about what I did. He just smiled and kissed my forehead. Sean took me and Shadow home that night. He said he was going to spend the night. I tried to tell him I was fine, but he knew that I wanted him to stay. I was still shaky. I took my jacket and work pants off, wearing a t-shirt and shorts underneath. Sean changed into shorts and a tank top. He helped me get comfy on the bed before cuddling me. I fell asleep in almost an instant. I'm pretty sure that was the best sleep I had my whole life. When I eventually woke up, I felt someone's arms around me. I would have started panicking, but then I remembered everything that happened last night. I blushed deeply, hiding my face in the pillow I was laying on. Me almost falling to my death made me so much more emotional than I would have liked to be. I guess that makes sense. I just hope like hell Sean didn't think I was weak or anything else because of it. Even though I was worried about what he thought of me, laying there in his embrace felt so comforting. I turned to face him, already awake and smiling at me. Reached over and began playing with my hair. That was when I noticed the tattoo on his arm. It was a half sleeve and looked like a wolf, katanas behind it, and ocean waves surrounding it. Before I even realized it, I had to reach over and was tracing the ink with my finger. He chuckled. "Morning, baby," he whispered softly, making me blush again. No one had ever called me that before. Shadow jumped onto the bed, giving me and Sean good morning doggy kisses before stepping back so we could still talk. I moved over, showing him the wolf tattoo that I had on my shoulder. It was a black wolf with blue eyes. Mine was a graduation present since my favorite animals are wolves and dogs. "What's the story with yours?" I asked him curiously. The smile on his face slightly faded. He sat up, facing away from me, and took his tank top off. At first, I blushed, knowing he was completely shirtless now. But then I saw angel wings tattooed onto his back. They were big enough to be almost the size of actual wings. "Whoa," I whispered softly. He nodded and turned back to face me. A few years ago, before we even came to this state, I had a friend named Angel. We were close and best friends. Almost more, but then a fire happened at the apartment complex we were living in. When we started to leave to get to safety, the floor above us started to break. We were almost in the hallway when the supports gave out. Angel pushed me out of the way, but ended up falling and getting crushed by the furniture in the room above us. He explained. I reached over and hugged him, wanting to comfort him. "Damn, I'm sorry," I whispered softly. He leaned against me with a light sigh. "So I got these tattoos in honor of him. He loved wolves and surfing, and collected swords. He looked over at me and chuckled. You kinda remind me of him. He said before playing with my hair again. I looked over and noticed the scar from where Carlos bit me last night. Carlos is a vampire, I thought out loud. Sean nodded and laid back with me. There was an old vampire hunter priest spirit that possessed him. After he weakened his body with the fall, he stabbed himself with a thick stick. I sighed and nuzzled my head against him. Can we go one night at work without something crazy happening? He laughed. But then your blog would be so boring. My eyes widened. I wasn't expecting him to mention the blog. You know about my blog? I asked him curiously. He nodded and put my phone in my hands. Your phone was getting blown up about it. I had to put it in silent mode. I didn't snoop, but I did find it on my phone. You're kind of popular there. Kissed my forehead. I'm sure your readers will be happy to find out we're together. I nodded. He ended up taking Shadow for a walk in the backyard while I updated the blog. Once it was updated, I heard a knock at the door. I got up and made my way downstairs. When I opened the door, I saw someone I didn't expect. It was my best friend from high school. Her name was Cassandra, and after we graduated from high school, she moved to Japan to study the lore that her favorite horror game was based on. She also had a game design job over there as well for a small video game company called Cherry Blossom Studios. She hadn't really changed appearance-wise. Same long blonde hair and ocean blue eyes. Now, before any of you ask me why me and her never became a thing, think about Sean, and I'm sure the answer is obvious. Not that she wasn't pretty, of course. She was beautiful, and if I was straight, things between us might be a whole lot different. She was the only one that knew about my sexuality. But that's because no one else really needed to know. Shane! She shouted at me before giving me a big hug. I instantly hugged her back. Hey, Cass? I said softly before letting go of her. What are you doing back here? Oh, the company moved to the US since most of the employees are American now. She explained to me. I nodded in response. Do you still have those somewhat psychic abilities you loved to experiment on me with back in high school? She laughed. Try me. Ask me something that I don't know the answer to. I thought for a moment. Alright, what am I thinking about right now? I was honestly curious to see if she would get it right or not. You have a boyfriend now, and he saved your life last night. And you have a dog now too. I blushed as my jaw dropped instantly. She was spot on accurate. Just then, felt an arm around me. I looked behind me to see Sean and Shadow had both come up next to me. Shadow ran up to Cassandra, happy to meet someone new and wanting attention. I have a feeling you're talking about me and Shadow here. I'm Sean. He said before kissing me on the cheek. I rolled my eyes as she giggled. I invited her in, and we all hung out in the living room. We both explained to her the events that have happened at work, including last night. She seemed very interested. I'll have to go through the attraction and see what's up, she said before grabbing her phone. I assumed she was looking something up. I looked over at Sean. Are we working tonight, Sean? I asked, mumbling at the end of my sentence. He chuckled before hugging me and nuzzling me. Come on, baby. You can call me babe. You can call me something else too, but I don't think you'd want to do that in front of Cass. He teased with a wink. I growled, hid my face in his chest, and slapped his arm. Sean, shut the fuck up, I whined. Cass giggled as she watched us. But yeah, we're gonna be open. We're also opening later because of the memorial for Kevin, Brock, and Carlos. I looked up at him. Wait, that's today? Where? In the break room. There's a separate memorial for the family members at one of the funeral homes in town. I looked down. Damn, I really hope nothing crazy happens tonight. I mumbled and sighed. Cassandra put her phone down and started playing with Shadow again. After a while, me and Sean had to get ready for work. We told Cassandra when the haunted house would be open, and left Shadow at home. I didn't want him getting hurt. It was pouring rain when we got there. Thankfully, we were there early enough to sit in the car as we waited for it to subside. Hey, Sean, I asked softly. He looked at me. Yeah? I sighed and looked over at him. What do you like about me? Like, what made you decide to make a move on me last night? I really wanted to know what he thought of me. He smiled and leaned closer to me. Your personality. You have a big heart and a desire to get things done. You try to make things better, even if it gets you almost killed. Your looks are damn near perfect to me. The way your stubble and facial hair grows around your face. Those blue eyes that I can easily get lost in, like a peaceful ocean. And of course, that damn smile. Your smile can make my day better no matter what. He told me in a soft, soothing voice. Shane, baby. Is Brayliam too. He then kissed me. It was a much deeper kiss than last night. I closed my eyes and kissed back. I assumed that whatever he said was Irish. I had no idea what it meant, but I didn't care either. We kissed like that for a bit longer, before he pulled off. We both sat there breathing heavily. I smiled softly. That was so sweet of you, Sean. Your turn. It took me a minute, but then I realized he wanted me to say what I liked about him. Well, your eyes for starters. They're so green, and whenever I look into them, I feel safe. Your protective personality. Whenever you helped me, you wanted to make sure I was, before you even checked on yourself. Your don't give a shite what people think attitude. Your soft and warm skin, as well as your facial structure. I explained to him before sighing. Sorry, that was probably really corny. See, I'm new at this whole relationship thing and never even kissed a guy before until you kissed me last night. I mumbled. Sean somehow managed to pull me close to him, even though we were in a car. Not corny at all, Shane. I know it came from your heart and that's what matters. He said as he put his hand on my chest where my heart is. I could feel what I think is called butterflies in my stomach. It was the simplest touch, and yet it still managed to feel like so much more. Sean's phone went off. He checked it and answered the phone. Ayo, Dad, what's up? I could hear Marley talk on the other end of the phone.
Is everything okay? The memorial's starting soon and you lads are running late.
Marley said, causing me to blush softly. I felt bad that we were running late to something as important as this. Oh shit, that's him already? Yeah, we're fine. Just waiting for it to stop pouring fucking wolves and tigers outside. He said before hanging up the phone. I assumed that what he said was just another version of the raining cats and dogs expression. Sean and I went inside, only to feel underdressed. Because the memorial was at work, we thought we had to be in our uniforms. Everyone else was in some form of a formal wear. Once the short sermon was over, I walked up to the picture of Carlos. I sighed and looked down. Sorry I couldn't save you, Carlos. Even if you were a vampire. I whispered softly. Sean wrapped his arms around me. Don't feel too bad about it, mate. You did your best to save the lad. He said softly. I shrugged and rubbed my eyes. Despite the decent amount of sleep I got last night, my eyes were tired. Carefully started to move out of Irish Shane's embrace and made my way to the coffee area. I went to grab the K-cup for my usual, but it wasn't there. I sighed, reaching for a French vanilla instead. Sorry, Shane. Adriana's gonna restock on everything tonight. I guess with everything going on, people wanted more coffee than usual. Marley's son, slightly startling me since I thought I was alone. Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I said, wondering if Shane told Marley about us yet. He smiled at me, putting a hand on my shoulder. I just want you to know, no bad judgment would be coming from me and Adriana about you and Sean. We're just glad he's with someone who makes him happy. I blushed deeply and nodded slowly. Thanks, Mr. Schmidt. Sean came up to both of us. Oi, Dad, you aren't putting Shane on the spot or embarrassing me, are you? He asked. Marley let out a low chuckle. Not at all. Just letting him know that things are all good. He patted me on the back, hard enough to make me cough and stumble a bit. He then left the room, leaving me and Sean alone with the other staff members who were still taking part in the memorial. I let out a breath that I didn't even know I was holding. I checked my coffee to see that it wasn't black anymore, but when I sipped it, it didn't taste like French vanilla. It tasted like my usual caramel vanilla cream setup. Actually, it was even better than that. There was a quick staff meeting before work. Because of everything that's happened, there are now a few new rules. Number 1, if something seems weird or out of place, let the security dispatch know immediately. Number 2, do not investigate the problems alone. Bring at least one person with you. And finally, for number 3, no one. Absolutely no one is allowed to go on the roof or in the elevator shaft. while me and Sean went to get to our post. I got shoulder bumped by our head of security, fucking Nathan Ramirez. Nate, for short. He thinks he's somehow higher up than Marley, and is very cocky about it. You may have noticed that me talking about this specific coworker is more aggressive than how I talked about the others. That's because Nate bullied and beat the shit out of me in high school. The guy is the literal embodiment of steroids and testosterone on crack. I'm not one to hold grudges, but the man was still to this day an asshole. He dumped the entire jug full of fruit punch at the opening night party for work. Ice cubes and all. Nice going, Willnuts. You and your Irish boyfriend made us get new rules. He spat before bumping into me. Sean growled, ready to pounce on the guy just to defend me. I put my hand in front of him so he wouldn't go after him just yet. Not my fault we've been attacked, I said, trying my best to defuse the situation at hand. Yeah, but if you would have stayed in your post, none of this shit would have happened. Always gotta be the hero, don't you? Isn't that how you got your ankle busted in high school? Protecting Cass? Maybe you were just acting straight so no one knew you were gay. Leave her out of this, asshole. I yelled at him. Suddenly, I felt like I was unable to control myself. I felt this huge urge to bite and claw Nathan. Sean could tell I was uneasy. He grabbed my arm. Shane, don't let him get to you, he said, trying to calm me down. Now you're gonna let your pretty Irish sugar daddy take care of you? Nate teased with a smirk. I saw him pull something out of his pocket. His last comment finally sent me into a fury of anger that I never felt before in my life. Before I knew it, I was on top of the guy, pushing him into the ground with a supernatural strength. I was shouting unintelligible things at him. I saw him move, and then felt something stab into my skin. I felt a fiery burning pain spread across my entire body within a matter of seconds. I cringed and howled. Suddenly, I blacked out. When I woke up, I was still on top of Nathan, but now, his jacket and shirt were torn, the shreds, bloody claw and bite marks all over his body. I so desperately tried to say something, but all the noises that came out sounded like barks and whines. Shane, baby, look at me, I heard Sean say softly. I turned to face him and stood up. That's when I realized I was shorter than normal, and I knew something was wrong. Not just with what just happened. Something was wrong with me. Sean sighed and sat on the floor. Shane, I gotta tell you something. Something you need to know about you and me. Sean carefully led me back to his car so he could talk to me without having to worry about anyone butting in on us. He helped me into the passenger seat. This was when I finally noticed what was wrong. I wasn't human. My hands were replaced with paws. I looked up at Sean, desperately in need of an explanation. You and I are both werewolves, Shane. Somehow, that Nathan bastard figured it out. He must have put something in your coffee while you were talking to Dad. That, combined with the anger you were feeling, and the syringe of wolfsbane he put into your back, triggered you into transforming. I'll help you get back into your normal form. He explained as he reached out and scratched the back of one of my ears. It felt good, calming even. Somehow, that helped me change back to normal. I was worried that I was going to be naked because of everything I've seen in movies and TV shows. Thankfully, I was wrong. Jesus, Sean, you could have told me about the whole werewolf thing earlier. I told him, snapping slightly. I stretched, the whole thing making my body feel pretty weird. You were already going through so much shit. I didn't want to make it worse. For fuck's sakes, man. You almost died last night, he explained. I sighed and nodded. So, are your parents werewolves too? I asked curiously. I had so many questions, but I knew saying all of them at once wouldn't help the situation at all. He nodded, taking his hat off and scratching the back of his head. Nathan's fired. Banned even. Turns out, he's a werewolf hunter, and he's got the tattoo on his chest to prove it. I looked over at him, puzzled and confused. Wait, they're werewolf hunters? I thought that was just for vampires. And what the hell do you mean by a tattoo? Hunters get a mark that look like a tattoo when their powers get triggered by some form of an event that happened with a supernatural creature. They get a brute strength. There's always hunters for all of the mythical or supernatural creatures. Hell, there's a rare one that hunts all of them. They usually has some childhood drama having to do with them or some shit. So, Are hunters always after us? He shook his head. Nope. It's only when a hunter gets a suspicion about someone. I guess that bastard was curious about you. I sighed and shrugged. Kicked my ass and bullied me in high school. Sure, I fought back and everything, but I've never done anything to make him think I'm a werewolf. I rambled, trying to figure out how the hell he knew about me. Sean sighed and shrugged. I don't know, babe, but we gotta get to work. We aren't shutting down because of Nate. I nodded as we both got out of the car and got ready for the night shift. Later in the night, I got a weird feedback into my pager. The noise was mainly static, but I could hear a voice mumbling something about a water pump and a basement. The voice sounded like Johnny, another security guard. I sighed. I knew I shouldn't go and check to see what's up, but I stood in place, fighting the urge to leave. That was until another feedback came through.
Shane, come on, man. I need your help. There's something weird going on down here. This shit usually happens to you, so, I need your expertise. Dude, you gotta get to the basement. Please.
Johnny pleaded through the pager. I picked it up and called back. Look, you gotta report it to dispatch and get approval before I do anything. It's a new rule. I explained. I really just wanted the rest of my night to be normal. Jesus, I'm ready for Halloween season to be over so I can go on vacation.
I can't. Fucking Nathan got fired.
He whined. I rolled my eyes. Fine, I'll be there soon. I mumbled before putting the pager back into the utility clip for it and heading to the basement. When I got there, I immediately knew something was off. The used to be dull gray and chipped painted walls were now black. The room was illuminated with a black light, and weird scratchy writings were painted in white and red. In the middle of the room was a makeshift pentagram, and it would look like 3 plushies on different parts of the pentagram. One was a doctor plushie, the other a red wolf, and the final was a vampire. What the fuck are the set designers up to? There you are, Johnny shouted, causing me to jump. Jesus, man, don't jump on people like that. I yelled at him, making him laugh. Sorry, dude. You got a chance to talk to Kevin, Brock, and Carlos one more time? Would you? He asked me in an unsettling voice. I guess. Why? So you can say you're sorry for what you did, of course. I stared at him hard. I didn't do anything, though. He laughed again. That's what you want people to think, but I know you killed them. It only makes sense. You were the only one there when the situations happened, and good old Sean covers you for it. How sweet, but you must be doing something for him in order for him to let you murder so many people at his own parents' business. I blinked a few times. What in the actual hell are you talking about? He pushed me to the center of the pentagram, pushed in what I'm guessing was a small cookie in my mouth, forcing me to eat it. Just do it. Admit and apologize and things will go back to normal. I turned to face him, but he was gone, and the room had turned pitch black but was somehow illuminated so I could see my hands and feet still. When I turned around again, I saw them. Kevin, Brock, and Carlos, all wearing what I saw them in before they died. They looked different, slightly holographic, like one of those calls in the Star Wars movies. What the fuck? I yelled in both confusion and fear. Carlos stepped towards me. Shh. Shane, it's okay. We aren't gonna hurt you. We know it wasn't you that killed us. I'm sorry Johnny is being such an ass. He hit his head when he fell down the stairs. He explained to me. I stepped back. Okay, hold on. I knew what killed Brock and Carlos, but what the hell happened to Kevin? I asked curiously. Kevin shrugged. I think the doctor possessed me or something. It made my head pound, man. Felt like shit. I nodded before hearing a loud bang. I jumped, shooting my head in the direction of the noise. The others screamed behind me. Shane, you gotta leave this realm before he gets here. Brock yelled. Before who? I asked. I didn't get an answer. My eyes closed on their own, and I was laying on the floor. I felt someone shaking me. Shane, come on, wake up. It was Sean's voice. I opened my eyes. What the hell just happened? I asked. After a while, I found out that Johnny gave me a cookie laced with LSD, which caused me to trip out and eventually pass out. The security cameras didn't show any sign of Kevin and the others. Once it was closing time, me and Sean clocked out and headed home. He cuddled me while I updated my journal and my blog. He told me not to worry about the person that the LSD ghost told me to worry about. We fell asleep soon after. It wasn't until the next day that I realized my phone had been smashed when I was on the whole ghost LSD trip. But it didn't make sense to me. My phone was in my pocket, and considering I landed on my back, my phone was not close enough to the ground to smash it. Maybe Johnny wanted to prevent me from using it, or a poltergeist got a hold of it. The touchscreen no longer worked. Now I have no way to write the blog. That was until I remembered my laptop, but even with Sean supporting me, writing on my laptop just didn't feel right. Plus, with my stitches being on me still, my hands would either cramp up or itch like hell, so I decided to make a small hiatus until I got a new phone. We had our first day off today. The place was closed out of respect for the ones that died, finally. And so that the set designers and construction crew can fix up a few things around the building. It was mainly to redecorate the basement and install a 3-lock system onto the door that leads to the roof. I hate to admit, but I was curious to see what the place looked like after this. I hope they revamped the break room, since it wasn't really big enough. It was weird having a day off. After spending time with Sean and Shadow, by either playing in the backyard, playing video games, or watching TV, we got a little bored. "Oi, Shane," Sean asked me while we were laying on the bed with Shadow, trying to snuggle between us. I looked over at him. "Yeah?" I asked as I gave Shadow ear scratches, since it seemed like he wanted attention. "What's your favorite color?" Well, that was kind of a random question, but I didn't mind answering it either. "Blue. Why?" I asked curiously. "Mine's green. Let's dye our hair," he said excitedly. "I know a decent salon in town that does a pretty good job, and it won't cost an arm and a leg either. Plus, we can get our hair trimmed up too, so we won't have to get it cut again for a while." I've never dyed my hair before, but with nothing else to do, I decided why not. We made sure Shadow had enough food and water, and a way to go outside so he'd be taken care of while we were gone. The car ride was fairly short since it was in town after all. When we got there, 2 of the ladies working there were all ready to help us instantly. Business was slow for them because of the stuff happening with the haunted house. When we told them we worked there, they were oddly intrigued, wanting us to give them all the details and everything. When Sean told them about the night he saved me from falling off the roof, and the kiss we had afterwards, they basically fangirled, saying that we belonged together. I didn't tell them, but it sounded cheesy and cliché to me. When we were done and I looked in the mirror, I couldn't believe how good I looked with black and blue hair. The way the stylist shaved my sides, it was so clean. Sean hugged me from behind. "Look at the handsome blue boy," Sean said, before growling and kissing my cheek. The stylist awed at us, and I was a blushing mess. When we left, Sean got a text from his parents, telling us to check the haunted house since rumors were going around that the building was on fire. We drove there as soon as possible. The weird thing was, the building had looked completely fine. We went inside, and there were no fires or alarms going off. I could have sworn I smelled smoke, though, and felt warmer than usual in the building. One of the set designers wanted me to see a new room they called the Crazed Butcher Shop. When I walked in, I could smell bleach and raw meat. I looked behind me. The set designer was gone. I was by myself. At least I thought I was. Suddenly, a loud chop noise filled the room, making me turn my head in the direction of it. I saw someone in a black and white butcher's costume, with bloody bandages wrapped around the majority of the face. He was a big and beefy guy, wearing a gas mask that only covered the lower half of his face. He was breathing loudly and heavily as he chopped up chunks of meat. Then he pulled out a bottle of bleach and poured the whole thing onto the pile of chopped meat. The combination made a loud sizzling and crackling noise, and it made the room smell so bad that I had to fall over in case I got sick. None of this made sense. We weren't open, so actors shouldn't be here, yet alone in their costumes and performing. And why would a butcher pour bleach on meat? I got that his character is crazed and all, but who the hell does that? Was he trying to poison people? When I finally was able to look in his direction, he was gone, leaving nothing but his knife, and the now whitened chunks of meat. The white meat was deeply disturbing. I'd never seen bleached meat before, but let me assure you I would be fine if I never saw it again. It looked so alien and gross. Having no idea where the butcher went, and knowing I was on the 3rd floor, I used my wolf form to get the hell out of there as quickly as possible. I ran into Sean in the parking lot, changing back and hugging him in an instant. "Whoa there, Blue Wolfer. What's going on?" he asked worriedly. I took a moment to catch my breath before answering. "The guy in the butcher's room, he was chopping and bleaching meat. Then he vanished and I didn't know what to do, so I left." He held my hand, leading me to the main room for security to check the footage. Being back in this room was so weird. It had only been a few days since we walked in here to try to figure out Kevin's death, but that felt so long ago. Sean and I are not exactly the same as we were, that's for sure. When he pulled up the footage, it showed me and the butcher, except his costume was nowhere near as realistic as the one I saw earlier. And he wasn't chopping meat or anything. He was just happy to tell me about how he got promoted from janitor to actor. It looked like I was zoned out completely. When he did leave the room was when I cringed, shifted into wolf form, and left. I was so confused as to what the hell was going on. I looked up at Sean, hoping like hell he'd have some explanation for this. Fuck, mate. Maybe all the stress of the job is getting to you, or you're still having the effects of last night's LSD trip, he explained, making me sigh. Why can't we just get one normal day? A day away from all this Final Destination and Silent Hill shit. A day where we don't have to come here at all, I said in a frustrated tone. Sean hugged me, and I looked at him. Why the hell didn't your parents just have us close after the Kevin incident? I asked him. He sighed and looked away. They've tried, Shane. They have talked to the higher-ups and everything, but since this is their first year owning a form of an attraction, they have to be open a certain amount of hours or the contract gets broken and we have to shut down. The higher-ups don't think anything is actually going on. They think it's all rumors and shit to get us more tourists, he explained to me. I let go of him and started walking in the direction of the parking lot, growling. That's bullshit, man. Shouldn't they be worried about the safety of everyone else? You'd think with all the incidents that happened here before my parents even owned the place would be warning enough. He got in the car, and Sean took me to get a new phone. He knew I needed to get away from the haunted house, thankfully. It took forever to get everything set up, but it was nice to have access to apps again. The rest of the night was pretty chill. Cass came by with her fiancé Adam. We watched movies and played video games. We had a few drinks, and I ended up half asleep on the couch, barely conscious. But I was awake enough to hear the conversation between Sean, Cass, and Adam as they were getting ready to leave. We know he can be a bit of a handful sometimes, but please just take care of him. With everything he's been through, I'm just so worried about him, Cass said to Sean. Yeah, he may be a bit overreactive at times, but that doesn't mean he deserves all this shit, Adam said to coincide with what Cass said. I know, guys, he's my Baralo, my wolf. I've told him I love him, but it was in Irish. I'm doing my best to keep him safe, Sean explained. Well, Cass started saying in a more serious tone, Shane doesn't have contact with his parents anymore, so if you hurt him, not only will Adam and I come after you, but so will my parents. Sean let out a nervous laugh. They all said their goodbyes and left. Sean picked me up and carried me to bed, allowing myself to fully pass out. I had this weird dream where I woke up in one of the rooms of the haunted house, tied to a chair and facing a strange man about my age I never met before. He said something about me not knowing the whole truth before setting the building on fire. The flames grew in no time, like the air had just been filled with hairspray. I could feel the heat as the flames came closer to my body. I tried so hard to scoot the chair over so I could find a way to get out, but nothing worked. I even tried shifting into my wolf form, but something was stopping me. I was engulfed with flames, screaming until I finally woke up. My body was trembling, and I swear I could still feel the heat of the flames and that guy's presence. Shadow was barking like crazy. Mine and Sean's phones were both going off, and I thought I saw the same guy from my nightmare at the foot of our bed, holding some sort of sword. He was shadowy in the darkness of the room. I panicked, trying to wake up Sean, who was somehow sleeping through all this. What? Shane, what's wrong? He asked me. Suddenly, the room was filled with silence. The only noises were my heavy breathing and Shadow's whining. I looked over in the direction of the shadowy swordsman. He was gone. I told Sean about the nightmare as I helped Shadow calm down. That was when Sean noticed I was sweating pinballs. He looked at my hands. The areas of the stitches were red, irritated, and puffy. A quick trip to the emergency room revealed that I was dealing with shock from an infection. With all the chaos, I had forgotten to clean the area of my hands with peroxide once a day. The nightmare was a fever dream, brought on by the infection mixed with the alcohol. I told the doctor about the man I saw. He just said that hallucinations were part of my infection too. The whole thing didn't make sense to me. I swore I saw the guy from my dream, looking like he was gonna go all ninja warrior on us. The doctor had given me some antibiotics. When we finally got home again, it was 3 a.m. Sean carried me to the bed. We got comfy again before I heard Sean sigh. "What?" I asked him, wanting to make sure he was okay. "You need to take care of yourself better, especially if you plan on using your wolf form. Do you even know what happens if you are in wolf form while having an infection from a wound?" He asked me. I felt bad, like this was something I should have known. I shook my head. "No. Your wolf form will try to heal you faster, but if the infection is super bad, the infection could get pushed into your brain with the healing. That causes mad wolf disease. And if you don't get rid of mad wolf disease, you go feral. A feral werewolf can no longer shift and is stuck in wolf form. A loved one can help you snap out of mad wolf disease, but the more far you've gone, the less likely you'll be able to be saved." He explained all this to me, and I hugged him. "Sean, I'm so sorry, I had no idea. I've only been a werewolf for a few days now. It's not like I have some fucking handbook on this shit." I rambled as he held me. "Shane, it's okay. I just don't want to lose you, and if that happens to you, and I can't bring you back, I would only have myself to blame. I promise, Sean. I'll try to prevent an infection. But you can't do that shit to me either, dork ass." He chuckled, giving me a soft, loving kiss before we went to sleep. Later in the morning, Sean and I had both gotten texts. We were, in fact, going to have to work tonight. I want to be perfectly clear that if there was any way for me to get out of work tonight, I would have. But Sean was going, and I didn't like the idea of him being there without me. I know how clingy that sounds, but with all the shit that happens at work, I can't risk losing him. For extra precaution, we asked if Cass had seen anything to do with us in her premonitions or visions or whatever she calls them. I usually try not to ask about her powers too much, but this whole situation seemed like a good reason for it. "I haven't really seen anything other than fire, a shadowed swordsman, and an angry vicious wolf," she explained. "It's hard to get an accurate read on things when I've never even stepped foot on the property, yet alone inside the building." Sean nodded, and I sighed. "Everything but the wolf is what I saw in my nightmare last night, so it's nothing new. Maybe the wolf was me because of the infection," I suggested. Sean looked towards Adam for additional opinion, but he was focusing on playing what sounded like Smash Bros. On his Nintendo Switch. Adam was never really one to ask questions, or even get involved with Cassandra's powers, which I guess is a good thing because if he tried to take advantage of it, I'd kick his ass in a heartbeat, or at least try to. He's almost a foot taller than me, and I'm sure has a bit more muscle than me as well, but now that I have Sean, I guess I'd have backup. Shadow was trying to keep out of the way during this, only asking for attention here and there before going for a squeaky toy. I swear at one point I saw him watch Adam play on the Switch. "How about this?" Sean started to suggest. "We head to work early and bring Cass with us. Give her a full tour of the building so she can get an accurate reading or whatever." Before me and Cass could say anything, Adam put the Switch down and stood up. "That's not going to happen. With all the shit that you guys have dealt with there, she's not getting herself into that mess, especially a few weeks before our wedding," he said in a serious tone that I'm honestly not used to. He's the kind of guy that is joking almost 90% of the time, so when he is serious, it's either hard to tell or so obvious it hurts. Cass gave him a look before walking up to him and poking him in the chest. "I will decide whether or not I should go there. And for fuck's sakes, Adam, this is about protecting Shane's life and his fucking mental state at this point. You gotta remember that I am my own person. I get that you want to protect me, but there's a big difference between being protective and controlling," Cass stated, causing my jaw to drop. She rarely ever does something like this. She's pretty easygoing and keeps to herself, but since he is her future husband, I guess it makes sense that she would want to make things clear now. Adam didn't even try to deny her now. He knew she was right. Cass drove behind us when we headed to work, so she could drive back if needed. When we got there, she said she didn't think that her being here would help her to do anything, but she was still willing to try. Alright, let's check out the break room. I want to see what they did to it. I told him as we walked in. Sean snickered, making me look at him. What? I swear, baby, for an American Shane, you're addicted to coffee. He said before him, and Cass laughed. I rolled my eyes. Well, excuse me for wanting to be wide awake, in case some supernatural wolf, witch, vampire hybrid or some shit happens tonight. Which, if the pattern keeps going, something is gonna happen. I explained. Sean just kissed my nose before hugging me. Don't get your boxers all up in a twist. You know I'm just fucking with you, right? He asked, making me blush softly and punch his shoulder. Sometimes I think his Irish slang, sayings, and whatnot are weird and don't make sense. Yeah, I know, now fuck off. I started making my way to the break room while Sean and Cass giggled. The redesign of the whole room was pretty cool. They used a room next to it to make it bigger. The pale yellow walls were now a purple with hints of blue. There were LED lights along the crowning of the ceiling, and there was a radio playing. I guess they wanted to make sure it had a more relaxed vibe than before. And man, did it work. They made more additions to the coffee area, which of course made me happy. I can add caramel syrup and whipped cream to my coffee now. Honestly, that made me feel a bit better about tonight. I sipped on my coffee while making Sean and Cass hot cocoa. When that was done, we headed to the basement. It looked like it was now mainly used for storage. Boxes with flashlights, extra costumes, etc. Basically, if anyone that worked here lost something they needed to do their job, they could come back down here to get it. We let Cass finish her hot cocoa before asking her for her final verdict on if anything would happen tonight. She thought for a moment and looked around. Something's blocking me off. I can't get a good read and haven't really gotten any visions. The only thing I can really see is a samurai with a tattoo on his chest and a sword of some kind. It looked to be a katana, but I couldn't really tell. She explained to us. Me and Sean looked at each other. That's gotta be a new character they added to the haunted house. We don't know anyone like that, I said as we headed back to the main floor. Cass didn't leave too long after. I gave her a pack of cookies and cream Hershey bars to give to Adam to make up for her coming here, just in case he was still upset about it. Sean and I got ready for our shifts, and we were given something as an extra precaution in case anyone tried anything funny. Stun guns. I put it in the holster that I usually keep my spare flashlight in, since I wouldn't be needing it. Brian, the new head of security since Nate got fired, explained to us how they work and everything so we don't hurt ourselves. Once again, the beginning of the night started normal. We had an extra amount of people because the town's rumors were only getting worse about the place. But with everything that's happened, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Things actually went pretty smoothly. When there was about an hour left in my shift, I went to get some coffee and a snack. I was halfway down the hall when something hit me in the back of the skull, causing me to black out. I woke up in the basement. The lights were way dimmer than before. I tried moving, but my hands were tied behind a beam. When I wiggled my hands to try to find a loose end, my skin burned, making me cry out in pain. I then heard maniacal laughter, making me look in the direction of it. I saw a shirtless man in black rugged pants and boots. His hair dyed a bright red, and he was holding a long sword. I saw the tattoo on his chest. Shit, this isn't good. It's the guy from Cassandra's vision, and my nightmare. My eyes looked around, and that's when I saw Sean was tied up to a beam as well. Sean? I shouted in a desperate attempt to get his attention. Shit. This is exactly what I was afraid of happening. Me getting hurt by weird things was something I was used to. But the possible love of my life, no fucking way. I can't lose him. Sean looked over at me. His eyes were wide, but he looked to be somewhat relieved. Shane, thank fuck, I thought you were dead. He exclaimed before the man with the sword sliced a crate open to get our attention. Would you two shut the hell up for one goddamn second? The man shouted. Sean looked over at him. Mind telling me who the fuck you are, mate? And why you got us down here? The man smirked, making me just now notice the mask on his face that was only covering the upper half. You don't recognize me, Sean? Has it really been that long? He snickered before taking off his mask. I'm a bit hurt. Sean's eyes widened so much, I honestly thought they were going to pop out of his head. His jaw dropped. Angel? He stuttered, seemingly confused. I looked at both of them, then back at Angel. Wait, I thought you said he died in a fire. I asked, trying to wrap my head around the situation. Angel cackled. So he has told you about me. But I got a feeling he hasn't told you all the details. So Sean, why don't you tell your little wolf boyfriend exactly what happened that day? Angel said before pulling my ropes tighter and making me cry out. I already did. You fucking fell with one of the beams and it crushed you. You died. Angel huffed, once again pulling my restraints, and now putting the blade of the katana so close to my throat, I swore I felt it slightly pierce through my skin. Tell him the truth, or I'll slice his head clean off, he threatened, making Sean bark. Okay. After the beam crushed Angel, I saw the tattoo form on his chest through his shirt, and I had to get out of there because of the fire, but he never reached out to me. The news even said you were fucking dead. The wolf hunter let go and put his sword down. But if you would have told me before we even stepped foot in that building that you were a werewolf, things would have been different. We were trying to figure out who killed my parents since you said there was no way that it was a wild animal attack, but you fucking lied. You killed them. Sean was crying now. I've never seen him cry before, and I gotta say, part of it broke me to see him like that. I'm sorry, Angel, but your parents killed my little sister the moment she shifted for the first time. They were gonna kill my whole family. I honestly had no idea what to say as I witnessed what was going on. Sean never told me that he had a sister. Angel was growling. He poured gasoline all over the boxes before lighting a match and setting the trail ablaze. It's too fucking late, asshole. You should have explained yourself years ago. You were my best friend and we almost became lovers. But now, your pathetic ass boyfriend, and I are gonna all die here, along with the spirits of this cursed building. There's no way you can escape with the wolfsbane's soaked ropes. Angel yelled before stabbing Sean in the shoulder with the sword. He cried out, and I watched steam leave his wound, his skin making a slight sizzle noise, like you hear when something is on a grill. Sean? I cried out, my voice shaky as I started crying. I was scared, way more scared than I have been this entire week. I didn't want Sean to die. I looked at Angel, but I knew I had to at least try to distract him long enough for Sean to compose himself. Hey, off-brand anime character, I called out, causing him to walk towards me. Leave the Irishman alone. You feel replaced because of me, don't you? I can smell it from here. You're so jealous and insecure that you want us both dead, but you're afraid to admit it. So you use your parents' death as an excuse to kill us without sounding so petty. I'm the pathetic one? I think it's pathetic you wasted so much of your life just for this. It's pathetic that you want to use your wolf hunter powers just for an act of revenge. There's probably werewolves out there abusing their powers for some sick-ass reason, but you decide to use them on us, dickbag. Get your own house in order before trying to fix others, you damn psychopath. Angel screamed, getting ready to stab me with the sword. I'll cut your tongue and all your limbs off, you blue-haired freak. He shouted with a maddened look in his eyes. Suddenly, Sean shifted into wolf form and attacked him. I couldn't really see what happened, but when Angel's scream stopped, I assumed that he was dead. The flame was close enough to my hands that I was able to use it to rip out of the ropes. It hurt like hell, but it needed to be done. My wrists had rope burn scars from the wolfsbane. I looked over at Sean. Sean, we gotta get out of here. The building's gonna be unstable soon. He turned towards me, and I could see blood dripping from his mouth as well as the wound on his shoulder. He slowly started walking towards me, growling viciously. I backed up until I couldn't anymore. Sean, calm down. It's me, Shane, I said softly, trying to calm him down. The katana must have had wolfsbane in it, because he looked like he had mad wolf disease. He jumped after me and I used my stun gun to knock him out. And it also made him turn back to normal. Damn it. I shifted into my wolf form and carried Sean up and outside of the building as quickly as I could. I looked at the park next door and saw Marley and Adriana. I brought Sean to them before turning back to normal. I was covered in ash and blood, my hands stinging. I must have stepped through the fire at some point. I looked over at the building. It looked like we had just gotten out in the nick of time. The whole thing was on fire. I looked over at Sean, who was still knocked out. Adriana wrapped bandages on his shoulder as I explained what happened. I started to panic when I realized Sean wasn't moving this whole time. No. Sean, wake up, damn it. I yelled as I started to shake him awake. Nothing. He didn't move. I rested my head on his chest. I didn't hear a single heartbeat. I hugged him tightly, beginning to cry for the second time that night. Sean, come on, please wake up. I can't lose you. I need you and love you so much. I yelled before kissing him. No response. I cried into his chest. The best person in my life, aside from Cass, was gone. It was all because of this stupid, fucking haunted house. I quit. I cried out, not caring if we were gonna be open anymore. That's when I felt an arm around me. Oi, American Shane. I heard Sean's voice and looked up at him. He was smirking. Have I told you that werewolves can regenerate over time? I punched him playfully before hugging him again. Don't you ever fucking scare me like that again. I yelled as Marley, Adriana, and everyone else clapped and laughed, happy that things were fine. Marley had taken Sean and I to a specific doctor that specializes in taking care of supernatural creatures. While we were getting looked at, Marley explained why they moved to America. After Vanessa died, even if Angel's parents were dead, we didn't feel safe anymore. At the time, my uncle had informed me that many hunters were trying to wipe Ireland clean of any supernatural creatures. Ironic, since hunters are a form of supernatural creatures themselves. After a while of living here, we heard the hospital was on sale. We bought it and wanted to turn it into a haunted house. We knew the history with the building, but wanted to try to bring some positivity into a town with it. Shed some light over the darkness, if you will, but the person we signed the contract with was strict, saying that if we closed down for any reason he didn't deem as good, we'd get shut down, fined, and exposed that we are werewolves. He explained. I nodded slowly as I listened. It honestly explained why we never closed down fully. We got word from a local firefighter that the building was burned to the point of full-on reconstruction. The cursed building that had existed and witnessed so many things over the past 100 or maybe even 200 years was gone. I was glad, till I realized I was out of a job. The next day, Sean began to move in with me. I asked what we were going to do money-wise, and he smiled. There's a school about an hour away that needs security guards. They won't be open until sometime after the new year, but we should still apply. Until then, I got a savings account that hasn't been touched in over a year. And the town's newspaper is in need of a new writer for one of their sections. How does that sound? He asked as Shadow came up to us, wanting attention. I leaned down and scratched the back of his ears. That sounds great, babe. It'll be nice to get a long break after the shit we've been through, I said, smiling softly. Oh hey, I got us something to celebrate us moving in together, he said as he handed me a box. Open it. I sat on the couch, carefully opening the box. It was 2 t-shirts. Mine and Sean's favorite snacks, sodas, and alcoholic beverages. One shirt said, American Shane in blue text. The other side, Irish Shane in green text. I laughed, moving the box over and hugging Sean. You're such a dork sometimes, Irish Shane. He snickered. Yeah, but I'm your dork. He handed me my journal. Are you going to keep updating that thing, now that we're not working at the haunted house anymore? I smiled and shook my head. No. Maybe when we work at the high school, though. I pulled out my phone, getting ready to post one more update from my journal, knowing that until my job as a high school security guard starts, there wouldn't be a need for me to update for a while.